Hello and welcome to this session where we talk about what's new in the Business Central web client. My name is Mike Borge-Cardona. I'm a product manager on the Business Central engineering team that works on the web client, but also our other clients as well, and integrating all of those to Microsoft 365 applications. Now, when our engineers get to work on every release, it starts with investing in performance, in reliability, in security, accessibility, and compliance. And all of those things are things we improve with every single minor and major update. A lot of it is guided by your feedback as well. So first of all, thank you for engaging with Microsoft and our partners to share that feedback, to share those stories with us. But your feedback and ideas also result in new features, new experiences in Business Central, and that's what I'd like to focus on today. So by the end of this session, you will learn how to work productively across companies and environments. You will learn how we've improved the action bar. And of course, if you access Business Central on premises, you will need to upgrade to Update 21 to benefit from some of these features. And how you deploy and configure the web server and the different tiers is changing. So it's very important that you listen in and tune into that section of this session. Finally, you will learn about the smaller things we've done in Business Central that make a difference, the small enhancements. Let's start with one of my favorites from Wave 2, and that is the company switcher. Now, Business Central is ready to adapt to the way you've structured your organization across geographies, across legal entities, by placing data into different containers called companies and grouping those into what we call environments. Now, many employees naturally work in one and only one company for most of their work life in that organization. But others need to access multiple companies. They will need to work across companies. They need data from those companies, and they need to switch between those on a regular basis. If you fall into this category, then we've got something very interesting for you. We're introducing the company switcher. It's a new pane in the web client that lets you discover and switch companies even across environments. So now let's dive in and see this in action. So here in Business Central, I'm in the Role Center, and as you can see, this is Kronos USA. That's the company that I'm currently in. And you might notice that in the very top of the screen in the app bar, what we sometimes call the header, we have this. And this is how you access the company switcher. Here I can see all of the companies I have access to across environments. There's production companies, there's evaluation companies, there's production environments, the sandbox environments, it's all here. Easy, making it really easy for me to discover where I want to go to next. Now I'm going to choose Kronos Orlando and switch. And what happens in the meantime here is basically the web client will just reboot and open up into that new company that I chose, Kronos Orlando, there it is. And it'll do that within the same tab, within the same browser window. It will also update my settings so that the next time I go and sign into this environment, it'll take me to Kronos Orlando first. So it is really a switch that happens in this case. Now, there's also alternate functionality you can use if I want to switch back, for example. Notice how here I can actually use some other actions such as open in a new tab. And what that does and what makes it different is I'm actually going to open a new browser tab with Kronos USA in it. And now I've got two companies open at the same time in different windows. And that's great if I've got some task which is distracting me, or I quickly need to look up some data and then just close it out, or I need to multitask and compare data across these different companies. Now, when you do open in a new tab, in that case, it doesn't update my settings. It's just a quick open of that company just for comparison's sake. Let's go to the chart of accounts here and just look at some of this financial information. Now, sometimes I need to compare financial data or any data across companies. And whenever you're in a list page like this, one of the things that lights up is a new action here to open this very same chart of accounts, but in that new company and in a new tab. So what this does is it opens a chart of accounts in Kronos USA for me to compare. Let's try that out. Now that the other company has opened up, I can actually place them side by side on my screen and begin comparing that financial information there. So this is really handy for these kind of tasks where I need to compare as well, and it just reduces the number of clicks it actually takes to get to that data. Okay, so now one other thing that's really important here is keyboard access. We've added a keyboard shortcut that you can use from anywhere in Business Central, and that is Control-O. So I'm just going to try that. Let's see it work. There it is. Opens up the same company switcher pane as expected. It sets focus inside the search box here, so I can immediately begin searching for different companies. If I type PH, it will narrow down the list to companies which match. And what it does is it matches both the company name, the badge, but also the environment name as well. So it's really great at just quickly narrowing down that list and finding the one that you want to switch to. In fact, let me show you how fast it makes switching using just the keyboard. I'm going to switch to Kronos Milan in a different environment. That's the environment we have for Italy. And look how quickly I can do this now. Control-O, MIL, enter. Done. That was super fast, wasn't it? So we really paid attention to the small details here, which make this a highly efficient experience for you. There's a few more little tricks I want to show you, which will help make it efficient. One thing you can do is also double click. So let me double click on Kronos USA again. Again, that'll switch companies. And while I had the company switcher pane open here, notice how some of these companies seem to have a colorful indicator and some of them don't. Well, this is entirely driven by what we call the company badge. Now, the company badge is a feature that's been around for a while, but here we're really elevating it and making use of it inside the pane, but also up inside the app bar at the very top as well. And it's a colorful indicator which just reminds you of your context. Hey, you are here, you are in this company. So I've noticed that Kronos Phoenix hasn't set the company badge. Let's switch to Phoenix and let's go specify that company badge to make it really easier for everyone who's switching across these companies to understand their context. For that, I'll start searching for company information. Let's go to the company information page here. If I scroll down, I've got the company badge settings. We'll give it a custom badge and I'll pick a random color like light yellow. We'll use that company badge text, and it's done. Now, this does come into effect after you've signed in again or just sort of refreshed your page. And in some cases, you may notice that some of the contents of the pane don't update. For example, if you've just created a new company, it may not show up here. If you've just specified the badge or someone else has, it won't show up. So there's a neat little trick there as well. Just use the F5 key, which typically refreshes the data in Business Central. That will also refresh the contents of the company switcher tab as well. Now, one last thing about the company badge. We have also extended that now to have 6 characters. So you can have up to 6 characters, as well as a color that you use at that simple, quick visual cue to remind you of the context that you're working in. So that was the company switcher. And Business Central also adapts to your very unique situation as a user. So what you see in the app bar up top may differ depending on which user you are and what you have access to. So for example, if you have access to just one company and nothing else, then you have no need to switch. There's nothing to switch to. So in that case, you wouldn't see any additional pixels distracting you up there in the header. If you have access to multiple companies across environments, again, things will look different. If you're on premises, and this is also interesting, you may not see multiple environments here. You may not be able to switch across environments and only switch across companies within that same current environment that you are in. And that is one of the limitations on premises. So we've got this new and highly efficient way of discovering and switching across companies, even across environments. Keep in mind that this displays all of the environments within your organization. What that means is it doesn't stretch beyond that and show you environments that you have access to across organizations. So, for example, if you're a partner providing support to multiple customers, you will not be able to see the environments across all of your customers there, only for the current organization that you're signed into. If you're in finance and doing business accounting, across a number of customers, same story there. For that, we recommend using the Company Hub instead, which is this nice dashboard where it summarizes financial information, but also helps you sort of double-click and dive into a particular customer's financial data. If you're a developer, the company switcher is really, really useful for switching across your different environments that you're using for testing, for troubleshooting. Really great tool there. And we've also coupled this with Visual Studio Code, where as a developer, you can now set a new parameter, which is called Startup Company, so that as VS Code boots up the web client for you to test your solution and your code, it opens up in that correct company as well. All right, let's now talk about the action bar. Over the last few years, we've collected feedback from a very broad spectrum of users. Novice users who are seeing Business Central for the very first time, all the way to advanced users who demand the utmost inefficiency from Business Central, and everything in between. And it was very clear to us that if there's one area that we could do a lot better in, it's how actions are presented and made accessible in the web client. So in Wave 2, we've modernized the action bar, improving efficiency, flexibility, and discoverability of actions. And because this changes the underlying coding model that drives this experience, we've put together a separate deep dive session into the action bar so that we can truly take the time to share all of these important details. And if you're a developer, I highly recommend you watch that other session, since the way you work with promoted actions, for example, is changing. So I would still like to give you just a very quick tour of the end user experience here without any of the technical mumbo jumbo. So we'll dive into that right now. Let's check out this sales order right here. Now, the first thing you might notice is that the actions in the action bar up top here have been pinned for easy access. In fact, every page is automatically pinned in terms of its action bar. Of course, you can unpin things as well if you want to create more space or just simplify the look of the page. But this really does help easing access and discoverability of some of those actions, especially if you're a new user and you're just trying to familiarize yourself with what can I do on this page. That's also really, really helpful there. The next thing you might notice is we have a new home group over here, and this makes it very similar to some of the other applications that you use from Microsoft. So the home concept being where you find the primary, most important actions of all. Another thing we've added here is the concept of a split button. Now that is a bit of a technical term, but what it really means is that some groups of actions can now be accessed in this special way where the group of actions are here, but instead of having a caption for the group, I actually have an action itself, which means that the primary action is right there for me to click. And if I just want alternatives to it, that's where I can press the down caret next to it and be able to choose from all of these different alternatives. Maybe I want to post, but maybe sometimes I want to post and create a new sales order. So the option is here. And what that does is it just reduces the amount of interaction that I need to do with actions, with grouping inside the action bar. Next, let's take a look at personalizing, because customizing Business Central, of course, is one of the key value propositions here, and being able to modify it to how you work and adapt to your workspace, to how you need to perform your tasks, how you prefer viewing and reading data, but also how you prefer accessing those actions. What are the most important actions for you? So let me start by personalizing here. There we go. Now, when you enter this personalization mode and the personalization banner appears, there's a number of things you can do. But one of the things that's completely new in Wave 2 is the ability to reorganize some of your what we call promoted actions. It's these groups here of most important actions. So I can do things like take copy document or drag it to here. I can also reorder some of these groups of promoted actions here. Let's take request approval and bring it in a lot earlier. There we go. So you can really adapt around your needs. But my absolute favorite one here is that if there's a function that I use really often and I want to have one-click access to it, now I can also drag it out from here, out of this group, and just place it right there. Which means that even when I've unpinned my action bar, it is visible, it is reachable, which makes this a really, really efficient experience. That was the modern action bar. Now it's time to switch gears and get a little bit more technical. Our customers that connect to Business Central Online benefit from Microsoft continually updating those servers and services in the cloud. On the other hand, on-premises customers have to update, deploy, configure, and keep Business Central running on the latest version to benefit from some of the features that you saw today and some of the others that I'll show later. Now, if you're running Business Central on premises, if you're hosting Business Central, if you're automating and scripting deployment of Business Central, if you're running in private cloud as well, there are important changes that you need to know about as you prepare for upgrading to Update 21. So throughout its long history, Business Central has really done a phenomenal job at adapting to the ever-changing technology landscape around it. And now we're upgrading the very heart of Business Central to .NET Core. Now this change will span across multiple updates and not only keeps our services on the latest platform, but also boosts performance and improves security. As part of this change, we've improved how the web server tier and the server tier talk to each other. So when you upgrade to version 21, do note that the default port is no longer 7046, okay? The default port has changed. And if your deployment topology has the web server and server tier on different computers, and you've configured this to use Windows authentication, then you will also need to reconfigure this for delegation. You'll find a link with a step-by-step guide at the end of this session that will guide you through the whole process of configuring delegation for your servers. And finally, because some of these changes affect how that communication works, there's a number of settings, of server settings, that are no longer needed. So we'll be discontinuing those server configuration settings as well, such as reconnect period. They're just no longer needed, so they can go, we will no longer be using them. And now let's see what else has changed across the web client. Let's start with one that actually affects really every one of us, no matter what we're doing in Business Central. So like most modern applications, Business Central doesn't have a save button, right? And that's convenient, but what you quickly learn is that in many cases, your field changes as you enter or modify a field. Those are actually only saved to the database when you close out the page, when you exit the page. And our customers and partners told us, well, couldn't we do better than that? It's difficult for new users who are still learning the small details around how Business Central works. It makes multitasking across different windows quite challenging sometimes because the changes you'd make here may not be ready to uptake in that other window. It's also confusing for developers sometimes who are troubleshooting data challenges and stepping through their code and testing their code. For example, if I were to block the customer chair from the item card, other users would still be able to create sales lines for that London chair until I close my item card. But now, field changes are saved to the database immediately per field. So let's see that very same scenario in Update 21. Let's block this particular item. There we go. The change has now been saved to the database as soon as I flip that switch. If I'm filling out any field here, as soon as I use the tab or enter key to leave the field, again, that's when Business Central will save the change. So any separate windows where I'm creating a sales order and have sales lines, or any other user working in the Business Central, will immediately be able to see and uptake that change. They instantly pick up on that change. See, in this case, I can no longer add the London chair to this particular quote. So this is autosaving as you work, and the technology allows us to do this in a performant way while remaining transactional. So it's an experience that is pretty similar to what you're used to before, except now the saving is more frequent. Now, this autosave experience used to be exclusively for the Outlook add-in, if you've used that one, and it's now consistently available across all our portfolio of clients. And this also means that the save indicator, which is the small indicator in the top right of your page, is also truly accurate and truly reflects when that data that you've changed has been saved to the Business Central database. Next, we've done some visual updates to the web client. Some of them are subtle. We've adjusted some spacing and alignment. We've aligned some of the visuals around option fields and lookups. One of the most prominent changes is that field tooltips now display in white. And that is because we're aligning more and more of our user experience over time with the Fluent design language that's used across many Microsoft applications. So next, let's talk about list views. In April 2019, we reinvented how list views work. We made them a lot more powerful, both for end users, but also for developers, giving them a whole new AL model to actually write code and add views to their list objects in Business Central. But at the time, we were not ready to remove the older legacy way that developers would use to create this same experience. And really, this dates back to our Dynamics NAV days. So ever since then, things have just coexisted together. And now the time has come for us to remove the past. So in Update 23, the legacy list views will be deprecated. And Update 23, of course, launches in October of calendar year 2023. But from this release, from Update 21, you can hide or show all legacy list views to just assess the impact that this will have on your solution come Update 23. So to do this, you need to go to the feature management page. Here you can search for the line item about views and simply enable this for all users. And the moment you do that, all the legacy list views will disappear. Let's take a look at the sales orders list as an example. Here I've created my own personal view named Recent Customers, but the other two groups of views are legacy views. But where do they come from? Developers are probably wondering, where is my code that makes these things appear? So one group is added automatically by Business Central based on the queue tiles on your role center. So as you can see, those queues are about sales orders. There are different filters on sales orders, and Business Central automatically takes that and adds this to the sales order list page as a view. So there's actually no specific AL code in this case that's making this happen other than the presence of the queue tile. The other is defined in AL code, but in the navigation menu of the role center. But they won't show up in the role center navigation menu itself. Again, Business Central takes these particular filtered lists, these views, and makes them show up inside the sales order list instead. So as a developer, it's now time to decide, are these views valuable to you? They may have been there for a number of years. And if they are valuable, you need to re-implement those using the new view model. Here's one more for developers as well that you need to know about. We've made some changes to support verbose fields on record tiles. We call these sometimes bricks or tiles, but fundamentally they're just a way for Business Central to summarize a record into a more compact space. And we use that on the web client, but also on the tablet and on the phone apps, as well as other flavors of the Business Central experience. Now, we found that some records are just best summarized as text, as lengthy text. And of course, these tiles, these bricks don't give us the space we need to house all of that text, right? So we've introduced a new layout here that will give more space to lengthier text, more verbose fields that you want to show there. And what that means is that for users who are trying to find a particular record, in this case, it's an app, it's an add-on app, then they won't need to always sort of drill into the details, backtrack and repeat and repeat and repeat to find what they're looking for. So if you define this group of fields, basically this is something you do on the table object using the brick field group. The last field in your field group, such as field 4 or field 6 in this case, and that's the one that typically shows in the bottom of the field. If that's a text field and it supports more than 100 characters, the tile will automatically be displayed this new way, where it sort of extends and gives space for up to 3 lines of text. Now, if the field value happens to be more than 3 lines, of course we still have to sort of truncate it at that point. It won't be able to show more because we don't want to have tiles and bricks which just take up most of your page, right? So that's how, sort of in this case, field 4 moves down, it's given more space, and it can be a lot more verbose. So there's nothing particular you need to do for this. It will just happen automatically if you already have the brick field group, which contains the last bottommost fields that are text fields with more than 100 characters. But of course, when you design your next table objects and specify your next brick field groups, this is one thing you can keep in mind. All right, now on to a different kind of tile altogether. You might have missed this because it rolled out before the start of Wave 2, but basically the front door to Business Central has changed. When you open the Office.com portal or the app launcher, you now have one and only one tile that leads into Business Central. There is no more sandbox tile that we used to have earlier. Now, you also gave us feedback over time that this Business Central branded tile sometimes didn't show up, didn't appear. If you did changes to user licenses, if you reassigned licenses, it wouldn't appear fast enough. So we took the opportunity as well to clean this up. And now it always works consistently. It's significantly better, a more reliable experience. It just works. And last, but certainly not least, let's talk about report layouts. Defining multiple layouts per report has been around for a while, but Wave 2 really takes this to a whole new level of flexibility. So now directly from the report window, what we call the report request page, you can also choose between the different layouts that have been defined for you by your administrator, through your partner solution maybe. But you can also, you can switch between those, but you can also add your own as well. So if what you're looking for is not there, you can just create a new layout. It could be based on Excel, for example, using our new Excel layout functionality. You can add that in there and generate your report based on that template. And this means that there's a tremendous amount of flexibility when it comes to generating reports for sharing with your colleagues or consuming that and analyzing that data. So you'll find most of these topics that I mentioned today in our learning material and documentation. I just wanted to call out these three in particular because these are the things that especially developers need to work with over the next few months as they update Update 21. There's action here for developers and administrators, so check out these links to help you through dealing with the delegation and working with those legacy list views and getting those switched over to the modern list view model. Okay, so we're at the end of this session. The next thing you should do is really check out the deep dive session about the action bar. Here we reveal the details of what changed, but also how developers can use these capabilities to offer even more efficiency to their customers. A really good session. Make sure you watch that. Tons of detail. And of course, if you work with Office applications or the Power Platform, check out these other two sessions. The web client is so deeply integrated now with Power Platform, with Power Automate, with Office applications for things like file sharing and co-authoring. So these sessions will really give you a nice overview of some of the things that have changed in Wave 2. Well, that's all we have time for when it comes to what's new in the web client. It's been a real pleasure showing you how we're evolving Business Central. Thanks to your community ideas and your feedback at the end of the day. So we are listening. Please keep that feedback and those ideas coming. If you'd like to submit a great idea, go to aka.ms/bcideas. You can put your idea there, and you can also find ideas from the rest of our community that you can vote for if they're of interest to you. And who knows, maybe your idea will be the next thing we present for Business Central. Thank you so much for watching, and we hope you enjoyed this session.